Hey guys, and welcome to our Mario Kart 8 Q&A. I'm Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by Andre Seegers, who was fortunate enough to spend 2 hours with the near-final build of the game. So we put out the call for questions, and you guys had them in droves. So let's not waste any more time and get right to them. And first up, we have the guy from Twitter who asks, does the item system work like it did in Mario Kart Wii and 7? He said he saw characters holding it in their hand and then it going behind the cart.
So yeah, the items work just like they do in, basically just like they do in Mario Kart 7, and basically most Mario Kart games. So it doesn't really bring any double dash elements as we kind of thought they might have in some of our early analysis. The only difference really, and it is kind of a somewhat big difference, is that when you drag an item or have items orbiting around you now, like triple shells or triple bananas, you can no longer grab a second item. Basically, that item's always occupying your inventory slot now, so you can only ever have a single item at a time. And I kept forgetting that as I was playing the game. I kept forgetting about the elements. I would keep holding on to these really crappy weapons, forgetting that I could pick up a second one. So I was just completely waste getting like a better weapon because of that.
See, that kind of works out better for me because I was always an idiot who just got rid of their item, never held on to have two or anything like that. So, hey, it's idiot-proof for me. Awesome.
There you go.
Next up is Ashton Peck, who asks, are the inside drifts returning? And if they are, have they changed at all from the Mario Kart Wii version?
So inside drifting, as far as I can tell, is not here. And I wasn't able to try all the vehicles. But I tried a fair amount of them, and as far as I could tell, it's completely gone. The motorcycles seem to be completely superficial this time around. Which I think are the only vehicles I had inside drifting before. So yeah, it's not here. They handle just like everything did in Mario Kart 7 did.
All right, next up is Zeshix, who asks, how do the tri-carts handle? Can I just assume that they pretty much are superficial like the bikes and the carts?
Yeah, as far as I could tell, again, they're basically, it's all superficial. I mean, they all have their own stats, of course. But as far as I could tell, like, they didn't handle, like, supremely uniquely. There might be some subtle changes there, depending on body type, just, based more on the stats than anything. But I didn't play with enough of them to say for sure. But there weren't any huge differences between vehicle types.
Next up is the Pro of Mario, who asks, do you know if Mario Kart 8 has Classic Controller Pro support?
As far as I know, it doesn't. I didn't confirm that specifically, but Nintendo didn't mention it, which probably means it's not there. It does support like every main Wii U controller, like the Gamepad, the Wii U Pro controller, and the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, and just the Wii Remote by itself. But as far as I know, nothing beyond that. It's kind of like most other Wii U games in that sense.
Okay. Joseph DePierno asks, is the Tanuki item gone?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, that's totally gone. Unless they're hiding something from us, which I doubt. Tanuki item is not there, which I'm kind of okay with. I never was too big of a fan of it originally, despite being based on the Tanuki suit, which is awesome. But the item, yeah, as best I can tell, is totally gone.
Yeah, I didn't play Mario Kart 7, but the Tanuki suits just seem kind of odd. It didn't seem like it fit too well with the whole Mario Kart sensibilities. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we have Absol Powers, who asks, which course are you glad to see returning for Mario Kart 8, and which course aren't you glad to see return?
So, there is no track I would say I'm not glad to see return. If I had to choose, I would say, simply Super Circuit tracks, any of them. I think there's only been one that we know of so far. And that's simply because I just don't care about Super Circuit. But with that said, they did a really good job updating it here. So even that's not a fair answer. I really liked all the tracks here, and my favorite one that they've brought back would probably be Toad's Turnpike. That's the one I most wanted to see back. Like, it's the one that I thought would make perfect sense. I'm pretty sure we've discussed that before when we talked about what tracks we wanted to see here. And the way they've implemented the new mechanics there, like with driving up on the walls using anti-gravity, or using or having trucks you can drive up off the ramps and flying over the traffic. It's just ingenious.
Yeah, we never even thought about that one.
Yeah, it's such a crazy idea, and it works so well. So those two would be up there, and then I also got to give a throw out to Moo Moo Meadows, which I really enjoyed whenever I played on the Wii, but never really stood out to me because it was otherwise a bland course, even though it was fun. But what they've done here with it is amazing. So, yeah.
Awesome. I just hope that Yoshi Valley shows up like I was hoping, which it may, according to your analysis.
That's right, yeah.
Next up is Lay Adeline, who asks, Mario Kart 7 felt really slow to me. Does this game feel the same, or does it feel speedier?
So, I never had that problem with Mario Kart 7. I never thought it really felt slow, at least by Mario Kart standards. I know a lot of people have actually complained. I've heard that complaint, applied to various Mario Karts, and it's just something I've never had an issue with. So maybe it's just me, but I didn't have an issue with that in Mario Kart 8. It's hard to say without doing a direct comparison that the game's faster. If I had to guess, maybe it seemed a little bit faster, but again, it's so close I couldn't say. But I had no issues with it being, too slow. But, you might if you thought Mario Kart 7 is slow as well.
Tyler Van Alstein asks, can you switch the horn for the map, and if you don't use the gamepad, will the map be projected on screen?
So yeah, so he's talking about the gamepad. So the way it works is there's 3 buttons on the side of the gamepad that toggle, off TV play. If you turn that off, then you have either the map or the horn on the screen, which you can toggle between. And the third option is you can turn motion controls on and off. So you can toggle the horn on and off, or the map on and off. Now when you turn off the map though, it doesn't appear on the TV. Like all my footage was captured using off TV mode, on the gamepad. And you can see there's no map on that screen. So the only map that appears will be on the gamepad. Which, to me I think that's fine. The map, was never particularly helpful anyway when it was on the TV. Because it was so small. It's like, whatever.
Yeah. Mark R. asks, does the game feel like any of the previous Mario Karts? Does it have a similar feel, or I'm assuming it does.
Yeah, it totally feels, closest to Mario Kart Wii or Mario Kart 7. You have the same, the timing-based boost mechanic, and then, and especially Mario Kart 7, because it still has the flying and underwater elements here, and, it loses the unique motorcycle mechanics of Mario Kart Wii. So it really, core gameplay-wise, is extremely similar to Mario Kart 7.
Okay. Eric Ray has a question that I don't think you'll be able to answer quite yet. How many playable characters are in the game, and are there any new power-ups?
So, yeah, that's actually a question Nintendo won't let me answer. What I can say is... actually, no, I can't say that either. So, yeah, I can't answer that. As for the new power-ups, we discussed this in our preview, so I highly recommend checking that out, because I cover a lot of stuff there, and I don't want to cover a whole lot of it, here again. But yeah, there's the Piranha Plant, which is new, and then the God, what is it?
The Boomerang.
Thank you, the Boomerang, yeah.
And the coins.
And the coins, right. Those are the 3 main items, plus a couple more we discovered in our analysis. But again, watch our preview for more details on those.
Okay, Theo Schrock asked, do you think they will bring back Wario Coliseum?
Dude, I hope so. That's perhaps the one track I can think of offhand that lends itself the best to anti-gravity. Because you're already defying gravity for most of that course. You got like these wide sweeping bends. It takes place in on this basically a caged match, basically, for Mario Kart. It just goes all over the place, and it makes so much sense to have anti-gravity there. Like, it's the closest thing to being a roller coaster type track we've had before this new game, I think. So, there's no signs of it in the game, but I really hope it's in there somewhere, because it just works too well.
Yeah. David Aguayo has a bit more technical question for you. Did you notice any significant difference in visual quality or frame rate when playing split screen versus single player?
No. So I was only able to play both single player and 2 player. I think some European outlets did play 3 and 4 player, but for the US it was only 2 player. With that said, between those 2, I noticed no difference at all. That's not to say there aren't any. There could have been some subtle changes, but I didn't pick up on them. The game still ran completely fluidly, no slowdown at all, and it looked great. And they're doing this really interesting thing now, too, where they divide the screen vertically, whereas in past games it's always been horizontal, as far as I recall. And I think that actually works well. Like, I was concerned, if that would be an issue, because having a wide range of view, a wide focal point is important for racing games. But with Mario Kart 8 being more vertically focused than the others, it makes complete sense here.
Emily Shimp asks, do you think Retro Bowser's Castle track will make it into Mario Kart 8?
I hope there's a Retro Bowser's track there. I imagine there will. It's something they've done before several times, so I'd be very surprised if they don't use opportunity to upgrade a Bowser track in the same manner that they did do Rainbow Road 64, because there is a lot of potential there with those Bowser tracks.
Absolutely, those are always some of the best courses in my mind.
Oh yeah, like besides Rainbow Road, they're like some of the most wild, usually some of the more wild ones. So they could do some really cool things there.
Next up, we have Anonymous on Twitter, who asks, from what I heard, you can't just choose a specific kart like in Mario Kart Wii. You have to choose parts as in 7. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's totally right. It works just like Mario Kart 7. You still have your body, you have your tires, your wheels, and your hang glider. And it's the exact same interface, same roulette style. It looks like a roulette wheel basically, where you pan out, scroll up and down them, and you can bring up a little stat screen. Optionally, I think you press the start button to bring up the stat screen, where it shows you, instantly how those parts are affecting your handling. But yeah, it's just like 7.
Okay, so no differences at all. Interesting. Ryita asks, what is the biggest difference that you noticed so far besides the anti-gravity feature?
So I'm going to cheat with this answer because it ties into the anti-gravity, and that would be the track design, which, is enabled by the anti-gravity. Especially by combining, the flying, the hang gliding, and the underwater segments. By merging all three, they've been able to do some really cool stuff with the level design. That really, as far as originality goes, is probably ahead of every other Mario Kart game that I can think of offhand. They're just doing so many cool things, like in the aforementioned Toad's Turnpike, where you drive up the wall, or in the preview I point out in Thwomp Ruins. There's this one part where there's 6 different ways to go, at least, but probably even more depending on how you break it down. And it's only because you have that many options available. So really, the anti-gravity lends itself so well to the track design that results in the second biggest difference. But beyond that, I would also say graphically, it's such a huge upgrade over anything we've seen in Mario Kart before. Again, as I said in the preview, I don't think I've ever said a Mario Kart game is gorgeous before, and that is actually the case here. This game is a showstopper. This is, if you want to show people, a good-looking Wii U game, this is a game you're going to do it with, for now at least. So, yeah, those are the biggest differences.
That's awesome.
Oh, and real quick, there's one smaller thing, though, and that's that when you drop off the ledge with an item now, I believe, you actually hold on to it. Whereas in the past games, you would lose your items. So it's a small but kind of a nice, nice addition.
Bright Future asks, do you think the game has a good selection of retro courses like previous games? Maybe even better?
So, here's the funny thing. In past, I was never too big on the retro courses in past games, for the most part. There would be some of them I really enjoyed, but I've long felt as that, they always felt as padding to me. They, although they would update them each time, it was subtle, and I often thought they didn't work as well as they did in the games they came from. This time, they're basically unrecognizable. They've gone through and changed these tracks so much, both visually and from a gameplay perspective, that they are, in essence, in anything but name, basically brand new tracks. Or in everything but name, basically brand new tracks. So I would say, based on what I played, these are by far and away the best retro selection they've had.
That sounds awesome. We have Black Yoshi asking, do you think there's going to be a Baby Park-like track where it's just, a simple oval?
God, I hope so. Because, I've gone on the record to saying Baby Park is one of my favorite Mario Kart courses. It's just wild, zany action, which is just a definition of Mario Kart, and that track embodies all of that. So I think there could be some really cool things they could do with a Baby Park track in Mario Kart 8 with anti-gravity. Whether something as simple as just inverting half the track so you're going up a 90-degree turn and then coming back down, or even having it invert on itself, kind of or doing a Mobius strip type thing the Mario Circuit did. I think there's a ton of potential, and it'd be a shame if it's not here. Even though I do think it's likely because they've brought back Baby Park before, so that might lessen its chances here. So I hope there is, but I think there's a strong chance it won't be.
Next up is Bright Future, who asks, do you feel there's any unnecessary characters in this game, kind of like in Mario Kart 7?
Oh yeah, Metal Mario I still think is kind of a waste, if only on principle. I pointed out in the analysis he has some new lines now, where he says, when he loses, how Mario says Mamma Mia? Well, Metal Mario says Mia Mama for some reason. He just says it backwards.
So we have Bizarro Mario.
Yeah, basically, yeah. The other characters, as far as I can say, seem fine. I mean, there's so many here that even if there were a few dead weight ones, it doesn't matter. It's not like Mario Kart 7 where a lot of the roster was given to pointless characters like Queen Bee for some reason. Here, you already have the Koopalings. Like, what more do you need?
Yeah, exactly. Sergio A. I think that. Sorry, I just butchered your name. Can you do wheelies with the motorcycle?
So I think I mentioned it before, but no, the motorcycles are purely cosmetic now. I mean, you still can technically do wheelies in the sense that whenever you get a speed boost, like using a mushroom or getting a speed boost at the very start of the race, they do a wheelie automatically, but it's just for looks. You can't manually activate them anymore for a speed boost. So no, they're basically gone.
Okay. Next up is Furflosion, who has a lot of questions actually. Since you got to try out the new stages and items, how did stages flow play and how well did the items play out? Next, what's your opinion on... Well, let's just answer that one first. And we'll
yeah, I'm already forgetting. So the stages, they seem to flow well. That's kind of a hard question to answer, especially just because I didn't get a chance to play a whole ton of each one. But there was just so much going on in each one, and you're just changing scenery constantly. Like on Shy Guy Falls, you're driving through like a mountain, and you're going up a waterfall, then across a bridge and down a waterfall, then you're crossing a chasm, then you see a mine cart, and Shy Guy's working on the mines, and it's just so much to take in. The tracks just seem to have a really good flow to them. And there was a question about the items.
How well did the items play out? Did any of them feel overpowered or anything like that?
Again, it's impossible to say at this point. I played for 2 hours, but you're still just getting. That's just enough time to start coming to terms with the balance of everything. As far as I could tell, it seemed to be good. I didn't see that many blue shells, so that's worth anything. And everything else seemed to be pretty well balanced, as far as I can say. But it's gonna be a whole different ball game when I'm playing online with different people. With actual people too.
Oh yeah.
So it's too early to say, but it seemed fine. And also for me, that's historically not something I've had much of a problem with for Mario Kart games. So I don't expect it'll be any problem for me here as well.
Okay. What's your opinion on the Rainbow Road 64 stage with the new touches?
So I didn't actually get to play it myself. That's one of the few games I got footage of, one of the few tracks I got footage of that wasn't actually playable at the event. With that said, I think it looks awesome. Like, I saw that and it basically blew me away. It just looks so good, and they're doing some really clever things there. Like with how they've turned it into a single lap track now. Which cuts down dramatically on how long it takes to race. Then they added that flying train for no reason at all, but it's awesome. And it takes place over a city, and the whole thing is just amazing looking. Like, I almost keep forgetting that we're not looking at the actual Rainbow Road in the game. That's just a remake.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing to me, is that this is the remake. This is how good it looks. What the heck does the actual Rainbow Road look like for Mario Kart 8? Because that has to be mind-blowing.
Well, we'll save that for discussion, because I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. And finally, how does the spinning trick thing work in the anti-gravity parts?
So whenever you touch someone, normally when you hit someone, you obviously bounce off. But in anti-gravity, you actually, both of you get a speed boost, instantly speeding you up, a short amount. So instead of avoiding running into other people, you actually want to try and hit other people. And not just other people, but you'll occasionally find obstacles almost on, in the anti-gravity sections, but they're not really obstacles, because you want to hit them too for that same speed boost. Actually, as a quick example, those submarines we pointed out in the water park course some time ago, which we originally thought were obstacles, actually have that same benefit where you can drive underneath those submarines on the track, and if you hit the wheels or whatever, the part where they're attached to the track at, you actually get a speed boost from them. So it really makes you think about racing in a totally different way than you normally do.
Yeah, that's kind of wild, because I'm just so ready to avoid things, not really drive into them.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, Ella Score asks, how well does the game control? We already talked about the Wii motion controls, but how does it actually control with the gamepad and everything else? Is it loose? Is it tight?
Oh, it handles great. Like, no matter if you're playing with the standard controls or you're using motion controls, it handles just fantastic. As I mentioned in the preview, I hopped right in 150cc, and I felt like right at home. I think even the Nintendo rep there just basically, like, was almost getting bored. He's like, yeah, you're obviously experienced with Mario Kart, so I'll just leave you alone. The controls just feel great. I had no issues with them at all. If I fell off a track or made a mistake, that was my own doing. Definitely not the fault of anything else. I'm one who loved the motion controls in Mario Kart Wii, and while I'm not sure I'll use them here, I might, I don't know. The ones I tried worked totally fine here as well, so.
Nice. Next up is Weebob, who asks, how does the Boomerang item work? Does it only last until it hits another racer, or do you have it a set amount of uses with it?
Darn it, weren't you listening to my previous answer, Bob, or whatever your name is? So yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I already covered this.
Yeah.
But the boomerang works, you throw it 3 times, it goes really far, and then it comes back, and it'll take out anything in its path. So it's kind of a pretty formidable weapon. And there's a little meter, too, that shows you how many throws you have left. So again, you have 3 uses, so it doesn't disappear when it hits something. It just comes right back, and so it's a really, like, it's basically better than triple green shells in almost every way. Aside from the fact that it doesn't function as an automatic shield.
Okay. Yeah, I've already covered all that stuff. But Preston B asks, are there still the standard 32 courses in Mario Kart 8, or do you think there will be more?
So based on the preview event, based on the menu, there were 4 circuits for both, there were 4 circuits for the main Grand Prix, and then 4 retro circuits. So there were 8 in total, just like in past games. And the latter 4 were blacked out. So based on that, I'm going to say 32 is probably it, unless there's one that some secret one you unlock like after beating all the others. I'm skeptical of that because that's not really something they've done before, or at least not recently. But you never know with Nintendo. But I would wager a guess that based on just how detailed all these tracks are, that 32 is probably going to be it. They're not scrimping on any details here. Like, it's kind of impressive that they're putting, that this game has as much as it does, and is coming out, at this point in the Wii U's life cycle that it is.
Yeah. Now we have Chaos Bender, who asks, when changing to anti-gravity or back to regular racing, and swapping the angle of the orientations, do you get disoriented at all? Like, does it become weird?
Yeah, not really. The camera for the most part stays right behind your racer. So really, when you go like upside down or in a loop or something, it's actually all quite gradual. If you play at 0, it's kind of like that because the camera sticks with you, and because you're not really watching the background, you're watching the track. It's almost something you don't even notice that much. In fact, the times when you notice it the most are when you drive up walls, like in Toad's Turnpike or in DK, or in Thwomp Ruins rather. Because what they do there that's kind of cool is the camera doesn't follow you completely. Instead, the camera just kind of tilts a little bit to to kind of show you're driving at an angle. And that actually is what lends it probably a more convincing mechanic of it. It's like, oh, I'm not, this is different than usual. Whereas when you're driving upside down normally, it actually doesn't feel like that outrageous.
Next up is Isaiah Pickett, who is curious if the game will actually help Wii U sales. Like, do you think this is a system seller?
I think it could be. It definitely has the most potential to be of any recent Wii U games. Well, especially because those games are out and we know their potential. I would say if there's like a game coming up that could do it, this would be it. So I will be very curious to see how this does. But based on the reaction so far to just our preview coverage, I have a feeling this game's going to do very, very well. So I don't know if it's going to be like the savior the Wii U needs per se, but I think it definitely will help in the short term. And if Nintendo can maintain that momentum, maybe they can turn the Wii U around to some degree. But, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, I think the Mario Kart Wii was one of the best-selling games on that console, so...
Oh, it sold a ridiculous amount, like 40 million.
Yeah, so it definitely has the potential to do at least some business.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up is Hugo from Twitter, who says, I noticed bananas circle around the carts like green shells. Do you know if you can still drag them behind like in previous games?
Nope. I mean, I know that you can't. So yeah, they circle around you just like green shells. You can still drop them like you could in past games, but no, they don't follow behind you anymore. Which is both better and worse in a way. It's better in that you now have a full 360 degree shield, just like with the shells. The downside is it's no longer as effective at blocking red shells behind you. Because before, it would you could block, basically 3 red shells, plus, potentially more if you had the second item in reserve. Now, unless those bananas are timed perfectly going around you, you'll be lucky if you block, more than 1 red shell.
It's an interesting change in pace, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Titus asks, what's your opinions on the music, and did you get to experience battles or co-op at all?
So, yeah, no battles or co-op. We just did competitive 2-player Grand Prix. As for the, what was the first part of that question?
The music.
The music, yeah. So the thing at these events is they're so loud, and especially Mario Kart, because Jesus, everyone is yelling about, like there was so much yelling going on with people losing in Mario Kart. I couldn't hear a damn thing there. But I've been able to watch my own gameplay videos. Thank God I recorded the audio so I can actually hear it. And based on what I've watched, myself, which is kind of a weird thing to say, based on these own videos I recorded, the music sounds pretty good to me. I'm not sure if I love it as much as, like, say, Mario Kart 64, which might have some of my favorite music, and which is why I'm so ecstatic some of those courses are back, because I do like those remixes. But overall, I've liked what I've heard, especially with, like, Moo Moo Meadows, which is a song I've always liked since Mario Kart Wii, and I've liked what they've done here, too. So, based on what I've played, and seen, and heard, it seems good so far, but I'm gonna have to play more before I can give, like, a, more accurate verdict.
Yeah. Next up is Spaceship from Twitter, who has 2 separate sets of questions. First is basically about the controls for tricks. Do you use the D-pad? Are they done while tapping R? Are they back triggers? Which buttons do you use in order to perform the tricks?
So if you're using standard controls, it's just like the 3DS in every way, basically, and that is you're pressing R to do the stunts, and the face buttons are used for gas, brake, and all that stuff. Yeah, so there you go.
Okay. Okay. His other question is one that I do actually know myself. Is there a button to let you look behind you if you have no detailed map? He hasn't seen any videos of people looking behind them. Well, buddy, you should have watched our videos, because I know for a fact Andre looked behind him.
I actually do it a pretty fair amount, too. Yeah, exactly. Gee, what kind of GameXplain fan are you, dude?
It's just such a shame. You gotta watch more of our videos.
Right?
I guess I can extrapolate from that. I don't really look behind me that much. Is it disorienting for you to go from looking behind to going back, or you do it quick enough that you're fine?
It can be. I mean, you actually have to be pretty confident to do that. It's not something I advise, but I'm pretty sure I was doing it, and it even screwed me up at a few points. It's more something, for when, like, you're in first place and you already know the track really well. Aside from that, it's not super crucial. It's not something that I, like, desperately missed from Mario Kart 7, but it is good to have back, because it is a good feature. So I am glad it is back, and it works well. The only downside is I don't know why they it's too bad that they weren't able to implement that onto the gamepad, with that being your rear view mirror, instead of it being full screen. But it works as is.
Yeah, with the multiple controls, that's probably why they left it out. Next up is Julio Luis Pasquada. Once again, I apologize if I'm screwing up your name. The game's characters look like they have a lot more personality this time around. Out of the ones you've played as, which one stood out to you the most as having, the most personality?
I would say the Koopalings. They did a really good job, like, capturing the essence of these characters, despite being confined to a go-kart. Like, in some of the gameplay videos, I think you can see, I forget his name. It's one of the kooky-looking Koopalings, like the craziest one. Lemmy, maybe? But you can see, like, his eyes dart, like, all over the place, and you can just really see, like, the, how you'd imagine these characters to be, coming through in their mannerisms in this game. I can't say it's, like, head and shoulders above past Mario Kart games, but it does seem to be an improvement. For me, I would still say Double Dash is the shining example of that, simply because by having the second character, like, on the back of the cart, often facing the camera, you can't really top that. Like, you're staring at that character, whereas you're looking at these characters' backs most of the time. But despite that, they do a good job, anyway.
Yeah, I noticed a bit of the personality coming out while performing tricks, since each person has different ones. Yeah.
That's a good point. Actually, the tricks do a really good job, helping make the characters feel more fleshed out.
Next up is Zant of Darkness, who asks, does Mario Kart 8 have the Versus feature like in Mario Kart Wii, where you could pick any course rather than having to do the whole Grand Prix?
So based on the preview event, no. But I'm pretty sure... I mean, I don't know if it's going to be in the final game or not. I think there's a strong chance it could be. The copy we saw wasn't final. But with that said, based on the preview event, it wasn't there, and I wish it had been. But I'm pretty sure every option wasn't there. So yeah, I wouldn't take it as being indicative of anything.
Okay. Next up is Link from Twitter, who asks, specifically, are the hop and drift controls the same button?
It works just like Mario Kart 7.
Okay.
So hopping and drifting, the same thing.
All right. Next up is Fernando Coronado, who asks, what character you use most when you play Mario Kart? Who's your favorite character?
So Toad is usually my go-to guy. It depends on the Mario Kart game, but for the main ones, it's usually Toad. I think I switched up on Mario Kart Wii a bit. I think I used Rosalina for a while, or Funky Kong, because they were the heavyweights and they performed well in online races. Toad's usually my go-to, although in Double Dash, I think I often used Baby Bowser, Diddy, or Yoshi for their or Koopa Troopa for their special abilities. But barring that, Toad's usually my go-to guy.
Nah, for me it's always been Yoshi. I don't know why, I just love Yoshi the best.
He's pretty great too.
Yeah, I like the acceleration characters. That's always been my go-to.
Yeah, that's usually how I do it too. Although online, that sometimes won't fly. You have to use like a top speed character.
Anyway, we have Simply Named X from Twitter asking, do you know if the U-turn section on the GBA Mario circuit raises or lowers as the race progresses, as we had previously guessed?
So as far as I can tell, it's totally stationary throughout the race. In the opening, it is cool because you can see it actually raising from the ground into its raised position. That aside, it doesn't change at all, as far as I could tell. I was looking for it, and if it does change, it's so subtle so as to not really matter. I think it would have been cool if it changed, or more of the track changed, but, again, that's getting kind of greedy, because it's pretty awesome what they've done already.
Yeah. I noticed when the opening bit there, I did see it raise up a bit, so I was actually curious about that myself, since we had talked about it.
It's kind of odd that they went to the extent of, animating the entire thing, and you're just going to take it, a single step further, and making it even more dynamic. But it's still really cool as is.
Okay. Next up is Jake Walker, who asks, how are the loading times? And in terms of graphics, are there any noticeable technical imperfections, like jagged edges or low-res textures?
Yeah, loading times are non-existent. I did not notice them at all. I mean, that's not to say they're not there. They just weren't long enough to be an issue at all. I think it's comparable to past Mario Kart games, where as far as I remember, they weren't an issue either. And as far as graphical deficiencies, again, it's hard to say at a preview event. Because I'm more focused on making sure I get all the details right, trying to appreciate the game, from a gameplay perspective, and as a whole, of course. But I'm not, looking to nitpick it there either. But as far as I could tell, I didn't see anything that stood out to me as not looking fantastic. This game just looks really good. I say that in my preview, and I meant it. This game is just gorgeous. Now, maybe there'll be some deficiencies I'll spot, when I play the game for the review. But I can't imagine what they'd be at this point, because the game just looks great all around.
Okay. Next up is Mally Kuhn. I think I'm saying that right. Do you think Nintendo will reconsider their item mechanic before their final release? They find it quite odd that they're not allowing items in reserve in this game, and yeah, it just... what do you think? You think that's a good change, a bad change?
It's too early to say if it's a good change or bad change, concretely. I will say I've liked what I've played so far. I don't see any issue with it. And I think it'll make it a little bit harder to hold on to the leading positions, because you have less options to defend yourself with. Because before you had triple green shells and another set in backup, or bananas in backup. You were basically a fortress. Now you can only hold those weapons and you can't pick up a backup. So there's almost no chance it will change before release. That's concrete. We're so close to the game releasing, it has to go gold very soon. So no, there's no way that's going to change, in my opinion. And I wouldn't want it to either. Like, even if it turns out not to be the best, not to be as good, I think it's good to play with those mechanics every once in a while. Like, I don't want every Mario Kart game to feel like the others.
Yeah.
And that's something we already started brushing up against with some of the previous ones. So it's good to see some change there.
Yeah, definitely. I know you're not be able to answer this one, but I was curious to get your opinion on it. And nonetheless, we have Riley Creator here, who asks, for battles, do you think they'll be timed, or will you have lives like the balloons in them as in before? And do you think the Piranha Plant will show up in it and potentially be like too powerful?
That's a good one. Yeah, I guess they would. I think. Well, they've always moderated. I'm pretty sure they've always moderated what items would appear in battle mode before. Like, I'm pretty sure like lightning bolts don't appear. So yeah, I can see the Piranha Plant potentially being too powerful, although you can just stay away too. I hope they go back. I really hope they go back to classic battle mode, like not this Mario Kart Wii garbage, where you had like a time limit and lives, or I barely remember how it worked. Where I think it was point based and it was team based. It's like all the things you could do wrong, they pulled it off somehow. So if they want anyone to play that mode, and by anyone I mean me, that's the only one I can speak for, but the only person that matters to me. They need to go back to classic Mario Kart, like Mario Kart 64 style battle mode, which is still like the pinnacle of battle mode to me. That worked so well then, and I even like double dashes, but ever since then it's kind of been a downhill slope. So I really do hope they go back to that, and I think they will, because Mario Kart Wii's battle mode, as far as I know, wasn't well received. I don't know if it was even that played that much. So I do think they'll go back to it. I just wonder I'm curious how it will work with 12 people though. If they can make it work with 12 people.
Yeah. Next up is Brian Cordones, who asks, what is your favorite track of all time in any Mario Kart? Which I think I know the answer to, but I'm curious to see what it actually is.
Oh god, that's a hard question. My default answer, like knee-jerk reaction, is Baby Park, because that level is insane and I love it for it. Like, it's just so much wild crap going on. It really is like just it's what you like. It's basically, it represents Mario Kart so perfectly. That aside, I also really like Calamari Desert, and I've always really liked Toad's Turnpike for whatever reason, and that's why I like it being back here. I'm trying to think of any other examples offhand, like, Royal Raceway was good, and Mario, Rainbow Road 64 I enjoyed back in the day. Those are probably my favorites, yeah.
Okay. Now, I saved the hardest question for last, and it's from Chris Parlamas. Is Mario in Mario Kart?
So, I didn't want to spoil it like this, but I'm sorry to say, just Mario's not in the game. I know, it's in the title, and he's been in the series historically, but Metal Mario's replacing him completely. Sorry, guys.
Yep. Oh, them's the breaks. It's Metal Mario Kart
8. Exactly.
Yep. Well, I think that's all the questions we can do for now. We covered quite a lot, I believe. So if you like this video, be sure to stay tuned to GameXplain on both Twitter and Facebook. You can find us at GameXplain. And be sure to stay tuned to our channel for more on Mario Kart 8. We have tons more coming with the discussion, more track analyses, just tons of stuff. So be sure to stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.